Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. A few days ago, we discussed on this program the entry of Savior Kasukuwere in the presidential race in Zimbabwe. And one of the things that we tried to emphasize on that occasion was that he is as corrupt as they come. He is Zanu PF through and through. And since these elections are not going to be free, fair, and credible, getting another guy who also does not care about the rules is probably the worst thing that could have happened to Mnangagwa. And lo and behold, they filed, or some of the Zanu PF operatives have tried to get him off the ballot papers. And I think that is the principal reason why. Kasukuwere knows the system. You keep him on the ballot paper, he will embarrass the regime. He knows the elections are being rigged. And his voice will add to that, to amplify that problem from Mnangagwa. Let's just listen to him talking about how he's still on the ballot paper because he has launched an appeal of the High Court judge with the Supreme Court, which has got to be heard. I'm sure it will be heard in the next few days because the ballot paper is due to come out on the 22nd of July. So just about 4 weeks before the elections itself. So let's listen to him and the sheer arrogance in his voice is telling. And I will have tonight Benjamin to help with analysis. Well, Benjamin, do you want to welcome the audience before we play the tape?
Thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, viewers and listeners, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
To join and ask Zach to observe the legal position, print and gazette the ballot paper with my name as expected on the 22nd of July, 2023. I remain a lawfully nominated candidate for the presidency. We are aware of why Mnangagwa has to resort to this kind of tactics. This is what happens when you're a coward. You try as much as possible to find every avenue. Yes, it's politics, but this has gone beyond politics. These are the effects of state capture. This is what happens when an individual thinks he is more powerful than the state. Like I said a few weeks ago, as I launched my bid, we've taken this extraordinary decision in this extraordinary time and moment to save our country from danger. If there is any time that Zimbabwe must dodge the bullet, it is now. Our countrymen are called upon the 23rd of August to exercise their rights to remove a cancerous and dangerous situation. This man is not fit for business. He's not fit for the office. We have observed that he fails to appreciate that leadership is more than your individual aspirations or selfish desires. It goes beyond that. It's about observing the rules of your country, upholding the constitution of your country, protecting everybody. Like my colleague, Honorable Mzembe, said earlier on, the conduct of elections, and which is a very critical point that I'll be making just now, must be fair, must not just be fair, but must be seen also to be fair, pre, during, and after the elections. The conditions that exist before the elections, that will exist during the elections and after elections, are what constitute a free and fair election. Zimbabwe needs free and fair elections. We've had a long time. Our people have suffered enough. We must conduct ourselves in a manner that at the end of the day, whoever wins receives support from everyone. This is essential for Zimbabwe to get the support it requires, one within the region, in the African Union, as well as worldwide. We have big challenges to confront, the sanctions, but it starts with us achieving internal harmony, cohesion within our country, and showing the world that when it is given or when we have an opportunity to exercise our rights as Zimbabweans, we do so in a manner that is peaceful, that is within our constitution. There is no need for all these shenanigans. There is no need for all these attempts to suppress the aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe. We are aware that SADC is looking forward to these elections, and I call upon SADC leadership to take note. Please take note. We need Zimbabwe out of this ditch. This is a huge test on our SADC leadership. It is a huge test on the IU as well as observers, that Zimbabwe should be able to produce a set of results out of an election that is little disputes, very little disputes. We're worried when we see intimidation, when we see others are banned from having rallies, whilst others are allowed to have what we call moving crowds, rented crowds, from one place to the other. You can't win an election on the basis of rented crowds and chicken in supplies. Serious politics requires that we sell our policies to the people, to the ground, and we engage our people in real substantive issues of development. My appeal to SADC is that Zimbabwe's situation cannot be ignored. SADC must lift its head and look at what's happening in that piece of land between the Limpopo and Zambezi. Its stability is so critical for the entire region. What happens in Zimbabwe has an effect on South Africa, Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, Angola, Zambia, Botswana, Lesotho, and Swaziland, all these regional states. If Zimbabwe conducts her elections in a good and peaceful manner, we will attend to our economy, allow our citizens to come back and play their part in the development of our nation. We have a lot of our people who are living outside the country, and they're facing numerous difficulties. My appeal will be emotional because I think we owe it to our people to give them a good opportunity to recover from these years of pain, suffering, and unending challenges. It can't be about the individuals, your personal interests, your selfish altruism. It must be about the collective aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe. We've got to call back and rebuild our great nation. We have an economy to look at, and that economy requires a government that is chosen by and for the people of Zimbabwe. You can't impose yourself every time there's an opportunity. Threats of arrests, even expired warrants of arrests are brought up. Everything is done to try and muzzle those of us who are standing this election. We will be campaigning.
There you have it, Benjamin. We could go on. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, in as much as it is funny that now that you're on the opposition, you are saying exactly what they have been saying, what they've been seeing and saying for the past, I don't know how many donkey years. It's now evident. You feel it too. So, but on a more serious note, I'm glad. If he's sincere, I'm glad that he has come to the realization that what they were doing, including he himself, was not right in terms of the country, in terms of the Zimbabwean people, right? This cannot go, can go on, and it's still continuing. It's just that the
I,
shoe
I,
has just
I think Benjamin, on the sincerity, I will have to say no. We can't be fooled by that one here. What he's complaining
that's why
about here is nothing compared to what he was doing to the opposition.
I know, but we cannot write him completely out. Maybe he has got a change of heart, but a change of heart for me would usually, if he is really sincere, like he's saying, Zimbabwe has had enough of the suffering and
No,
all
I think
that.
I think on that point, I think this is where our people fail themselves. Here is somebody with a proven track record of being a thug. If you're going to try to be so foolish to trust him, then you deserve to suffer. I mean, the guy, if he was to come back into power, he would take off from where he left off. If we're serious, people like him, when they come, they should go to jail. They should start giving back all the wealth that they've looted. That is what can happen. This guy is not honest. Yes, now the shoe is in the other foot. That's why he's complaining. But the minute he gets back into power, if you seriously think he'll be a Democrat, I think that is, to me, that's asking for too much.
Yes, yeah, I do agree. I was getting to that part to say, if he is truly sincere, I think he should be showing that he should be giving back what he owes to Zimbabwe, and he knows what he owes to Zimbabwe. So let us first, do the right thing. Let him do the right thing by himself, to search his soul before he wants us to start appreciating. We know what he has done in the past. And I don't think he can just miraculously come all of a sudden and then, actually say, he agreed that Zimbabwe has not had free and fair elections for a long time. Let's say the truth, Zimbabwe has not have had free and fair elections since 1980, right? And he was part of the regime that was taking away our rights to express ourselves, to free media, as like he says, to to choose our own leadership. And just like you say, just because the shoe is on the other foot, it's now painful. He now sees what is wrong with what the current leadership, but nothing has changed during the time that he was involved. It was good, and now that he's no longer part of that gravy train, it's all bad. I think this is what Zimbabweans must look at and just see the reasons behind why he's saying what he has to say today. Thank you.
Well, I mean, this is just an article on in 2015 by Kasukuwere himself, when the opposition were calling for electoral reforms following the 2013 rigged elections. And Kasukuwere is proudly saying Tsvangirai can go hang. So to say this guy has changed. He said his Damascene moment and is a new man. I think is naive. He's just somebody who was booted out following the 2017 coup and is now seeing the opportunity to get back into power. And I think Zimbabweans, we've got to be smart enough to realize that this kind of person is the last person we want. But I come back to what I said in the introduction. These elections are going to be rigged. Kasukuwere's role in this is that if we're going to have rigged elections, now we have got two candidates who know how the system is rigged. That is the contribution, but we should not see it as the positive, because the outcome of either one of them is not in the public interest. Will only be perpetuating the dictatorship. But I think we will also lose it if we were to only concentrate on him and his past. What is important here is he is now talking the same language of free, fair, and credible elections. I think that is important. These people, when they are in power, they pretend not to hear. When people cry for fundamental rights, for basic free, fair, and credible elections, for verified voters' roll, these people ignore it as if suddenly they can't hear what you're saying. But when they themselves are the victims of the system, all of a sudden now they speak very articulately. Kasukuwere actually went on to talk about how some of the SADC leaders are actively involved and they are keen to see free, fair, and credible elections in Zimbabwe. That is positive, Benjamin. What, don't you think so?
Oh yes, I did hear that part. You know, it's something that is, you know, it's something that we wished to hear for a very long time. But you know, since it's coming from somebody that, you know, we cannot really trust, that the source of where it's coming from, we shouldn't get too excited. You know, just like, you know, we were talking about, you know, warning others to say, you know, this person here, we've been with him for a very long time, and we just don't expect him to be a saint within a day, you know. So I think it's something that is positive, but you know, we must always be alert, because I really don't trust him at all, at all.
I totally agree with you there. And I think in this particular case, actually, his appeal to SADC leaders will also fall on deaf ears, because the same SADC leaders are the ones who were spearheading the global political agreement in 2008 to 2013. And it was Zanu PF leaders who frustrated the implementation of the democratic reforms. Only during the coup that Mugabe started turning to SADC because, you know, he found himself on the receiving end of the military coup. During the 2000 and the GNU itself, when SADC was saying, no, you cannot go ahead with the elections in 2013 without meaningful democratic reforms, Mugabe is actually on public record saying, who is SADC? We will leave SADC. In other words, if SADC had put their foot down and insisted that the democratic reforms are implemented, Mugabe was threatening to take Zimbabwe out of SADC. And funny enough, when the coup happened, Mugabe was appealing to SADC and asking, why is SADC doing nothing? You know, they should condemn the people who conducted the coup. You are the one who was ignoring SADC. And the same applies now. our friend is appealing to SADC, and SADC know fairly well that these internal Zanu PF fights, they would want SADC to step in just because the Kasukuwere and company are weak. They cannot take on Mnangagwa and his Lacoste faction. But if Kasukuwere was to get into power, he will ignore SADC, just as Mugabe ignored SADC in the past. So I totally agree with your argument. But I think in this particular case, SADC will be important. And I don't know how serious that bit was. I could try to find it, and maybe we can listen to that bit. You go ahead
I think,
while I try to find it.
yes, I agree with you. It's good so that our viewers and listeners can actually also benefit from what we are talking about. For me, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and surely I don't think Mr. Kasukuwere has got that right to all of a sudden come and approach Zimbabweans and say, our we've been through a lot all these years, when he was also part and parcel of this problem. And now he just wants to appear as if, let's just wipe the slate clean and start from this here point in time, because he wants is vying for the position that I don't think it's fair. And I would want to encourage all Zimbabweans to to see for themselves who this person really is, what he did to us. And he cannot just come up and just decide, no, let's forget about it, let's start afresh. I'm a changed person. No, I don't think life works that way.
Okay, let's listen to the bit. I hope he talks about the SADC.
On the ground at the appropriate time and very soon. But we're also aware of the material conditions that exist, more so after the 2017 coup, the way it was handled. But that does not stop us from curing the coup and all that comes with it in our nation. At the bare minimum, we just want good elections that allows Zimbabwe to rebuild itself. That's all we're seeking for. We don't want retribution, we want to rebuild. We don't want hatred, anger to be the currency for the next 5 years. I think the pain that we've gone through in the past 5 years cannot be replicated in the next 5 years. Let's allow Zimbabwe to pull back. Let Zimbabwe look after her people. Let Zimbabwe do that which it can to build itself up again, and it's possible, and it can be done. But we require our leadership in the region not to put their heads in the sand and not raise these matters. I lift off my head to the Prime Minister of Lesotho, who raised this matter a few days ago with the President of Botswana. He spoke it within the context of SADC. We support what he said because it's essential. No country is an island. We are all together in the region. What affects country A will also affect country B. Colleagues, what Zimbabwe faces is economic meltdown. This is what is now necessary, and this is the challenge before us.
There you are. So the Prime Minister, I don't know whether you had a chance to see anything on what the Prime Minister of Lesotho and President of Botswana discussed on the issue there, Benjamin.
No, I didn't have the chance to see it, unfortunately.
Well, I think it is commendable that these two raise the issue, even if we don't know the details. But the fact still remains that in within SADC region right now, we also have got another country that has publicly declared its position regarding these elections in Zimbabwe, i.e., the ANC government in South Africa. As far as they are concerned, they will not allow regime change in Zimbabwe as long as there are sanctions in that country. And we know the Western sanctions are still in place. And therefore, then I think SADC's position, therefore, is predetermined. So we are hoping with this meeting between Lesotho and Botswana is going to put pressure on SADC to look at the elections in Zimbabwe objectively. Because what SADC is being asked to do is just to go in, observe the elections, and come back and say, were the elections free, fair, and credible? Are the results the reflection, true reflection of the democratic will of the people of Zimbabwe? That's what they're being asked to do. South Africa's coming up with its own decision that as long as there are sanctions in Zimbabwe, there cannot be free, fair, and credible elections. I think that is not South Africa's prerogative. That South Africa does not have the power to decide that until sanctions are removed in Zimbabwe, ordinary Zimbabweans should not have a democratic say in the governance of the country. These elections are being rigged. We don't even have something as basic as a verified voters roll. We do not have free media. 3 million Zimbabweans in the diaspora have been denied the vote. Those are the issues that are important. To say that those issues should be ignored just because Zimbabwe is a quarrel with the West and sanctions are still imposed, to me is ridiculous. SADC does not have the right to usurp the people of Zimbabwe's democratic right to free, fair, and credible elections. Over to you, Benjamin.
For me, when I trade cautiously when it comes to SADC, because for all these years, they've seen the writing on the wall a long time ago. I think way before Zimbabwe became such a mess, but they kept on, saying everything is okay despite people getting beaten up and all sorts of things, unfair, you know media coverage and everything. But at the end of the day, they have come back and said no, the elections were considerably free and fair. And I think, just like Mr. Kasukuwere, I think both of them have they failed Zimbabweans. And we ourselves we have also failed ourselves in terms of always wanting to participate in rigged elections, despite us knowing fully well that this is what will the end result will be like this. Zanu PF will win because they are the architectures of this whole mess. So I wouldn't bank on SADC to all of a sudden come
Inflation,
and change
cost
or
of
make a
living,
turnaround.
low incomes.
Sorry about that. Sorry, go ahead, Benjamin.
So I wouldn't bank on SADC to say they would just change automatically just this time around, that they would say these elections are not free and fair. I don't think so.
Well, on that score, I would say SADC, South Africa, in terms of influence, South Africa is the big brother in the SADC region. And so Lesotho and Botswana, as much as they may want to insist that the elections should be free, fair, and credible, the chances are they will be overruled. But I think as Zimbabweans, we need to emphasize to SADC, and particularly our friends in South Africa, that they are not there to judge on whether the democratic will of the people is being influenced by because of the SADC, of the sanctions. The democratic will of the people, the right to free, fair, and credible elections, has never been somehow compromised or should not be suspended as long as there are sanctions that were imposed by the West. That to us is a totally nonsensical argument. Zanu PF has been rigging these elections long before the sanctions were imposed. And in this particular case, the economic meltdown has not been caused by sanctions, but by corruption and gross mismanagement. And so, therefore, then the people's right to a free, fair, and meaningful election is of great importance. In this case here, if that right is being violated, SADC's responsibility is to condemn the process and deny Zanu PF legitimacy. ANC are determined to grant Zanu PF legitimacy for selfish reasons. ANC, come next year, when they are facing the elections, would have been in government in South Africa for the last 30 years. And everybody knows that South Africa's economy is in serious trouble. There's been rampant corruption, gross mismanagement, and the country, if it's not a failed state already, it is way on its way to becoming a failed state. If Zimbabwe was to boot out Zanu PF in a free, fair, and credible election, and the economy was to start recovering, South Africa's ANC government would be worried, because they'll be worried that if people should think, well, if we do the same with our ANC government, our economy would improve. That would mean the next year's elections for ANC would be very, very difficult. And so to preempt that possible outcome is to make sure that Zanu PF is not booted out. And that to us is totally unacceptable. And we are hoping that Lesotho and Botswana's voices within SADC will be heard. And we are hoping that South Africans there are smart enough to realize the machinations that the ANC government is doing in this case here. At the end of the day, if Zimbabwean elections are rigged, on this point, I can tell you, Ben, you will be talking about it. There will be another new wave of Zimbabweans leaving the country, for South Africa and many other countries in the region, out of economic desperation. That is not going to help South Africa. That is not going to help the region. A point that Kasukuwere brought, and I think he was right on that one. Sorry, go ahead, Benjamin.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't think a lot of, I mean, right now Zimbabweans are facing, Zimbabwe is a failed state, and to think of another 5 years with the current regime and what they're doing and going about with their processes and their effects, I see we are going to have a big chunk of Zimbabweans dispersing around the SADC area, and they will have to. SADC itself has to look after them. All the SADC countries would have to make space and make room for Zimbabweans, because for sure they will. they will be migrating to those countries, and it's just the beginning. Eventually, our children's children are coming. They're also going to be flocking there, because we all know that once you've graduated, you've finished your education, there's nothing to do in Zimbabwe. There's no job creation, and I don't think Vision 2030 is going to be a reality, because it since it hasn't even taken off for the past 5 years. I don't think it's just going to just up and come into effect, you know, the next 5 years to come. So whoever is growing up now and finishing school for SADC, it's going to be a big problem, because they are definitely going to be coming.
Okay, my closing remarks would be that again, I reiterate the point that these elections are not free, fair, and credible. If they're going to be rigged elections, then Kasukuwere's entry is important in the sense that it's going to challenge Mnangagwa in his own terms. And already from the statement that Kasukuwere has given, he has already admitted that elections are not free, fair, and credible, and that they exposed some of the problems of vote rigging, which coming from Zanu PF is worth noting. And I think if he was to come back on the ballot paper, Mnangagwa would be really scared that if he was to reveal more details of how the elections are rigged, that will make it very difficult for SADC to rubber stamp the results and declare Zanu PF politically legitimate. That will be the most positive outcome to come out of this mess. Thanks very much, Benjamin. I don't know whether you want to make your closing remarks.
Yes, thank you very much. So, I mean, it's both a positive for to have Xavier Kasukuwere if you're a neutral, right? Because at least he adds a twist to this whole dimension. Was hopefully, I know a lot of people are hoping that he will go and pickpocket some of Zanu PF members, and try and split the Zanu PF in the middle, and then give Chamisa a chance. But I still stand my ground. I say, participating in these rigged elections is just a waste of time. We know that Zanu and the current, president has ZEC within his grasp. He's just paid off the judges. I mean, they just got given 400,000. What for? Nobody knows. So it's going to be very difficult, even though, and there's no verified voters roll. So I say, participation is a waste of time, but those that are willing to see how it all works out, well, it's one's choice.
Thanks so much, Benjamin. Personally, my view on participation has not changed at all. Whether Kasukuwere manages with his appeal or it doesn't. As long as you participate, you give the process legitimacy. And to give the process legitimacy, that is only going to perpetuate your own suffering. It's the most foolish thing anyone can do. If you cannot protest the process and denounce it as flawed and illegal, and denounce the opposition as opportunists, which they are, then at least do not participate. That will be my view. Whether or not Kasukuwere gets back on the ballot paper or it doesn't is irrelevant. If these elections are rigged, Kasukuwere is only participating as somebody who knows how the rigging is done, That is his business. How else can he participate? But for the ordinary thinking Zimbabwean, don't have anything to do with it. And with that, I would like to close the program, and thank you very much, the listeners, for joining us tonight. Thanks again, Benjamin.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, listeners and viewers, for your time.